What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another off-season episode of Facemask Fantasy. Hope it's a good start to everybody's week. Well, I guess we're starting to wind down now, and I imagine I don't know if everybody's paying attention to this, but obviously we're getting into the best part of the college basketball season. We've got the NCAA tournament next week. If anybody's doing brackets or paying attention to the conference tournaments that are going on right now, this is the best version of college basketball you obviously get all season long. Some refer to it as the best postseason in sports. I think it's certainly worthy of that being in the conversation. The NCAA tournament is awesome, so that's obviously going on. But in the background, the not so subtle background, and for probably a lot of people that pay attention to this channel in any capacity, is more or less the foreground. Is, of course, we're getting close to NFL free agency, which is happening next week. And the rumor mill is spinning. There's lots of talking points, lots of where will this guy go, where will this guy end up, where will this guy land, not just free agency but also the draft, of course. So while college basketball is taking a little bit step forward, that doesn't mean that I don't know that necessarily that anybody's forgetting about the NFL even in the early stages of the offseason. So there are absolutely talking points. You guys already know. Is Aaron Rodgers going to be wearing a jet green instead of Packer green somewhat soon? And what does that look like as far as a return in a trade for the Packers? And where is Lamar Jackson going to end up? Like, there's a lot. Quarterbacks are dominating the storylines right now. And I guess at this point of the offseason, that's becoming more and more of a trend in an NFL where teams are more open now than they were 10, 15 years ago to trade quarterbacks if the time is right. Trade players in general, really, during the offseason. But to really be aggressive to get something in return, if you're a team that's kind of hanging on to a great quarterback who is getting older and the team itself collectively isn't ready to compete. So quarterbacks are always going to be the first domino to fall, right? So right now they are dominating the conversation once again early in the offseason. Last year it was Matt Ryan. 2 years ago it was Matthew Stafford. Honestly, Rodgers' name was dominating the headlines this time last year too. So teams want to figure out sooner than later. They'll put the pieces together at the draft or even later in the summer if they have to in other places. But for teams looking to either go for it this year or decide what their season's going to look like in the form of if it's a rebuilding situation, the quarterback needs to be the first domino to fall. So naturally, they're going to be the first ones to be talked about and ultimately moved when the situation calls for it. What's up, Mike? Good to see you, man. The your prize for the league is on its way as of probably tomorrow. But I got you. That reminds me, I gotta get a hold of Rojo as well because again, dating all the way back to our members league, we ultimately kind of declared some sort of some spirited co-championship for the members league as far as the results of week 17. So Mike gets a prize and Rojo will get something as well. So that won't be that is or that that's happening. But anyway, um the so the Packers are, the Packers don't really have a decision to make. Aaron Rodgers has a decision to make. Does he want to return to Green Bay? Does he want to get traded? You would think at this point to the Jets. Um, does he retire outright? Does he just decide he hangs it up anymore? One of the tweet that I saw about that, I forget who tweeted it, but it really, to me, makes me believe more than anything that Rodgers doesn't retire this year because Brady also retired. And 5 years from now at that Hall of Fame ceremony, Rodgers is absolutely would be, anybody will be upstaged by Brady getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. And Rodgers is going to want that ceremony on, like, independent of Brady. He's not going to want to have to share that spotlight. I'm paraphrasing the tweet again. I don't remember who tweeted it out, but that I just read that and was like, yes, that makes so much sense. So to me, Rodgers does not retire this year. Um, it seems like it's down to, does he return to the Packers, or what feels like right now, even more and more, based on what the media is putting out there right now, what Jets players themselves are putting out on social media. There's growing optimism that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a New York Jet this year, and ironically, follow in the steps of Brett Favre 15 years later to the New York Jets. It didn't work out for the Jets when it happened with Favre. Doesn't work out with Aaron Rodgers 15 years later, who is, like, yeah, around what Favre was, I think, into his 40s at that point. Rodgers is 39. So it's not too far off. We'll see what happens there. Garrett Wilson, and what's going on, Alex? Good to see you. Speaking of, I was just about to bring this up. I'm doing slow drafts as well. If you want to join in on one, let me know. I filled my two little board entries for on Underdog, the little board tournament. I didn't. You can only do two. There's $3 entry on Underdog, obviously. Location dependent, depending on what state you live in. There's a little board tournament, $3 entry. You can only enter it twice, and I didn't know that. So I have my two entries in there. They're both slow drafts. The big, I think it's the big board, even though it's a $10 entry. They have larger tournaments, or if they don't now, they will before the end of the off season. Is a $10 entry. I submitted my first one just now. I had the 105. The first four picks went McCaffrey, and then some combination of Chase or Jefferson. I don't remember the specific order. And then Tyreek Hill went fourth. So I took Travis Kelce over Cooper Kupp, over Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor, Stephon Diggs. I took Kelce at 5. Yeah, it went McCaffrey, then Chase, then Jefferson, then Tyreek Hill. I took Kelce 105, which feels crazy. But at this point, honestly, in season, when you have, like, to draft a tight end with the 5th overall pick, like, it's like, what did I just do? It's a strange, funny feeling. But in season, when Travis Kelce is dominating for you, and you're watching everybody else, like, scrap by with whatever tight end they're trying to get through a week with, or even a season with, or even a couple of weeks with, it's like you go to sleep at night, like, so comfortably and confidently, knowing that you have Travis Kelce manning the tight end spot. And no matter what the Chiefs do, they'll likely look to retool the receiver room. Juju Smith-Schuster is only on a 1-year deal. Mecole Hardman is expected to leave in free agency. I mean, they can and probably will go back to replenishing the wide receiver room. But if they draft a rookie, they're going to lean on Travis Kelce once again. So took him at the 105. And then I have one non-tournament entry. I think it was either $3 or $5. That one was all slow drafts. Slow draft is the preference this time of year, but now is a great time to play best ball. I'll to be completely honest, I saw my most success as far as all of my entries across all different tournaments, all different entry fees, all different times of the year. I saw the greatest ROI in drafts that I did that were early, before the draft, and in some cases even before free agency, because you can really get a jump on a couple of guys, rookies and veterans who aren't signed yet, who are changing teams. They're just naturally, their capital drops. Like, I got Jacoby Myers with the 105th pick in a I think it was a little board entry. Just because he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. He's got 145 half PPR points the past 2 years. in one of the less impressive passing offenses in New England. So it's a good time to get some value, personally. And honestly, I mean, I'll go just to bring it full circle to bring it back about Aaron Rodgers. I mean, talk about value. Garrett Wilson is a late second round pick right now. You're going to want to get on that train before if Rodgers goes to the Jets, Garrett Wilson he's going to be a high second round pick. So even that little bit of value, you're talking about, the back half of the second round compared to the top half of the second round, you get him now while he still can be had at pick like 17, 18, as opposed to pick 12, 13, 14, which if Rodgers goes to the Jets will inevitably happen. Now's the time to get him. Yeah, I'll drop a draft. I could even create a private one where it's just like, hey, does anybody want to do a slow best ball? Uh, Again, obviously location dependent, but we'll fill. It fills whenever it fills, and whoever wants to jump in and play, we can do we can do a face mask 12 team slow draft. It might take some time. I don't know how many of our subs or anybody in the Discord plays best ball. Alex, I know you do, but um, if anybody else is interested and can, absolutely should. You absolutely should. So again, Garrett Wilson's stock is going to go up. He's already outrageously expensive in Dynasty. He's going to be outrageously expensive in redraft as well if Rodgers gets traded to the Jets. Elijah Moore's ADP right now is very low. He's a guy that I like grabbing. Um, I'm just going to look up real quickly. Elijah Moore's way too early ADP. Like 114. So you can have him in the 10th round of drafts. Last year he was going in the 5th round. He's 5 rounds cheaper this year, and you know, you can if you have concerns or doubts, obviously dating back to last season, it's like, okay, fine, fair. He did not have a good season. But if he goes from Zach Wilson to Aaron Rodgers, he goes from being a 10th round pick to a 7th round pick, maybe a little bit higher. So yes, you're taking a bit of a risk. But if you believe in the talent, it's not going to matter if it's Aaron Rodgers or Mike White. These guys will still produce. It'll obviously be more inconsistent if it's Mike White, of course, but like Elijah Moore in the 10th round, ninth, 10th round, take advantage of that. Unless, of course, tomorrow the Jets come out and announce that Zach Wilson is their starter for 2023 and they're not moving off of that claim, which we all know is not going to happen. Grab Elijah Moore. And he goes, yeah, Rodgers comes to New York, his ADP jumps 30 spots. So that appears to be the most likely landing spot, and it makes sense from an NFL perspective. The Jets had a playoff caliber defense last year, and this is why it makes sense. The Jets as a landing spot look like honestly the ideal match for Rodgers right now because their roster is a quarterback away. Their defense is ready. Their skill position players on offense are good. They have to compete with the Buffalo Bills. That's the one drawback. Like the Dolphin, I mean, there's a couple of drawbacks. Top to bottom, obviously, the AFC East consistently year in and year out is better than the NFC North. So Rodgers isn't going to have the layup to the division title that he normally has when the Packers have a competent team. Like Rodgers himself wasn't like his best self last year. But it might not have mattered because the Packers as a team just didn't they didn't feel like they were you didn't fear them in a potential playoff matchup. The Jets with Aaron Rodgers, that's probably a different story. But it's not going to be a layup to the division when you have Josh Allen also in the AFC East. Dolphins were a playoff team last year. Patriots are an average team. They're better though than say like at least right now the likes of the Bears. So, if you want to say you can even say for whatever it's worth, the worst AFC East team is better than the worst NFC North team. So it's a more challenging division for Rodgers, but the team is good. So it seems to make sense. Someone's trying to sell Mike. Someone's trying to sell Kenny Gainwell and Isaiah Likely to you. So the Eagles, I like Likely. We were admittedly, John and I were kind of hating on Isaiah Likely last offseason. We were worried about his RAS score and being behind Mark Andrews. It felt questionable how much work he was going to get as a receiving threat. Uh, we were wrong about that one. We got that one incorrect. Likely looks legit even when Mark Andrews is healthy. Likely is worth a pick in 12-team leagues, like in your draft, toward the end, of course, but he's viable. Maybe he's a bit more of a best ball pick, but Likely's legit. Gainwell Gainwell had a great rookie season, right? He totaled 7 touchdowns. He had a nice year. He didn't have as good of a year statistically in 2022, but he balled out in the playoffs. The Eagles turned to Gainwell uh, over San Francisco, or over Miles Sanders against San Francisco, and over Miles Sanders against Kansas City in the Super Bowl. Gainwell also got a lot of work, excuse me, against the Giants in the divisional round because it was a blowout. The game was a blowout. The Eagles are probably going to let Miles Sanders walk, but they're also going to bring somebody else in. To what capacity? Whether it's like the draft or somebody in free agency, because there's a lot of free agent running backs available this offseason. The Eagles are going to have their pick of the litter of what they want to do as far as adding to the backfield. Gainwell is a former 5th-round pick. They made that pick when they already had Miles Sanders, a former 2nd-round pick. My gut tells me that the Eagles are going to spend slightly better resources on a running back this year than they have for the past couple of years because they're going to let Miles Sanders walk. So that could mean they draft a running back with their 2nd-round pick. I think it's a late 2nd-round pick. Let me see what their 2nd-round pick is for the Eagles. They're not going to spend the 10th pick on Bijan, and I don't think Bijan's not going to be there at the 30th pick either. Even if they might, I guess they could take him if he falls there, but he's not going to fall there. Someone's going to take. Yeah, they have the 62nd pick in the draft. That feels like what they're going to do at the running back position, and then maybe I think Boston Scott is also a free agent, so they could retain him, or they could again sign another running back for cheap in free agency. All this to say, they're going to add to their backfield. And Gainwell showed out in the playoffs. But I don't want to send a 2nd-round pick. I don't want to send a 2nd-round pick to acquire Kenny Gainwell. I don't want to do that. Not sure what the offer is. If it's a second for both Gainwell and Likely, okay. Okay, fine. But if he's trying to sell from like he's trying to gas him up to get a better offer than that, nah, I'm good. I'm good. 'Cause, I mean, if the Ravens are either going to bring back, it's either going to be Lamar Jackson or Tyler Huntley and a rookie, which are two wildly different things for the record. But Likely's quarterback situation is a bit in flux, and Mark Andrews is there for at least one more season. The Ravens do have a potential out ahead of the 2024 year with Mark Andrews if they choose to. I I have to imagine he bounces back this year. He's better than he was this past season based on what we've seen from him in 2021 and 2019. So likely he's going to be behind Mark Andrews for a little while, and his quarterback situation is in flux. So I got to know what the offer is. I got to know what the offer is. What's going on, Iron? Thanks for coming in, man. Thanks for coming and hanging out. I'm always leery of acquiring running backs this time of the offseason because it's you. I just who's going to be added to that backfield because you know that that's likely going to happen for every team, for almost every team. How are they going to add to the backfield? And if Sanders and Boston Scott walk for the Eagles, they'll still bring two guys in, some combination of the draft and free agency. So, like one mid second round pick for Gainwell and Likely, okay, maybe. Anything else, and it's like, nah, I'm good. Speaking of Likely's quarterback, well, maybe quarterback, Lamar Jackson, wanted to talk about him as well. Um, Ravens slapped the non exclusive tender on Jackson a couple of days ago. You guys have heard the drill at this point or heard the story or the the circumstances that Lamar finds himself in. He can negotiate with other teams. Teams can put an offer sheet together. Ravens can choose to match it or let him walk with the offer in exchange for two first round picks. I do not think Lamar Jackson leaves Baltimore. I don't think they're going to let him go because now they can just somebody can make him an offer and everybody's playing the low ball game right now, right? This has got to be. I see people talking about it like collusion as like taking place among the owners because Lamar's asking for a fully guaranteed contract or as much fully guaranteed money as he possibly can get. Everyone right now is saying they're not going to pay that. Somebody's going to cave. Somebody's going to cave. To that point, I think at that point, as long as it's like not some astronomical number, the Ravens are just going to match it. Whatever it is, whatever number some team caves and signs Lamar to, I would expect. I have to imagine Baltimore just matches it. They just match it. Like this is I know it's a couple years ago, but a unanimous NFL MVP who is 26 years old. If you wave the white flag now, if you're the Ravens, if you wave the white flag now and you look to reset or because I don't think that's their I don't think that's their organizational approach. I can't when you have Lamar Jackson, I can't imagine that's your organizational approach. But if it is, you're setting yourself back forever because you're going against Burrow in your own division. You're going against Mahomes in your conference. You're going against Allen in your conference. And if you want to throw Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence in there as well, you can. You have to bring Lamar Jackson back because if you have Lamar Jackson, you're in that conversation. It's a brutal road. The AFC is brutal. The AFC is absolutely brutal. The NFC is the retiring home. The AFC is brutal. And if you're Baltimore, you have one of the 6 or 7 guys out of the 16 teams in the conference that are worth having. Maybe like 7 or 8. So I think Lamar stays in Baltimore. They need to make a move the way that maybe it's to a lesser extent because the Ravens do like to have a dynamic elite rushing attack with Lamar as their quarterback. But maybe it's not Stephon Diggs like what the Bills did. Maybe it's not AJ Brown like what the Eagles did, but they need to trade draft capital for a proven established wide receiver. And I said this last week. The first name that comes to mind is the guy who is dominating trade rumors at the wide receiver position, DeAndre Hopkins. You don't have to give up. The Bills gave up a first round pick for Stephon Diggs. The Eagles gave up a first round pick for AJ Brown. You do not have to give up a first round pick for DeAndre Hopkins, who is turning 30. And Baltimore, without a shadow of a doubt, is a shrewder, better front office than Arizona's. You can probably coax them out of giving up Hopkins for a third round pick. You got to do something. You got to do at least that if you're the Baltimore Ravens and you intend to match whatever offer sheet Lamar gets signed to, which I think happens. It'll erase any potential whatever if there's I'm not saying I don't know that there's bad blood between Lamar and the Ravens. I don't know if there's any animosity between Lamar and the Ravens, but let's just say there is. This smooths things over. It shows that the Ravens are not only willing to pay Lamar Jackson ultimately, but they want to build around him, give him help in a way that they kind of have come short with, fallen short of the past couple of off seasons. When healthy, Lamar is one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. Baltimore matches and they get him some help this year. I think if you're a dynasty team and you like your team, you like your depth, now's a good time to try to float an offer out there. Maybe if the DeAndre Hopkins team isn't as strong, see what you can get for him. Again, it's not going to cost you steep capital at this point. Hopkins remained elite as far as per game, per play efficiency, but he, for the second straight year, missed a lot of time. Obviously, first to the suspension, but then he also missed time due to it was a combination of injuries and the Cardinals were going nowhere fast in the second half of the season. So Hopkins probably just kind of sat out and preserved himself, which the team was probably okay with doing as well because they figured let's get as good of a first round pick as we possibly can in a lost year. So there's that kind of baked in decrease in value for DeAndre Hopkins right now. If you have a good team and the person who has Hopkins is staring down either in the midst of a rebuild or staring one down, Hopkins is a guy that you can get for that without breaking the bank before he moves to greener pastures. And maybe that's Baltimore. And you don't worry about DeAndre Hopkins if there's any kind of narrative concerns about Baltimore throwing the ball with Lamar Jackson. I think that's what happens. I think Baltimore goes out and gets DeAndre Hopkins after they secure whatever contract gets agreed upon with Lamar. And as far as the other teams that have been presumably reported out of the running for Lamar Jackson, that yeah, of course, that's going to be what they say right now while the process is early. Some of these teams are they're absolutely in on Lamar Jackson. How can you not be in? And I understand the money versus I'm drafting a quarterback and I can pay him a rookie QB salary while I build the rest of my team and go for it. But even if that works out for you, that guy's going to cost more in 4 years than Lamar Jackson does now if that rookie quarterback works out. The price only goes up every single year. It doesn't come down. Market gets reset every year. If you're a team without an answer at quarterback, you absolutely should be in on Lamar Jackson. I don't care where you are in your whether it's a rebuild or you feel like you got a chance to compete. Go get a 26-year-old former unanimous MVP. Crazy talk to be out on Lamar Jackson. That's crazy talk. Sean Tucker's 40 time, yeah, he wasn't at. Let me see if anything is listed somewhere. Could be on Player Profiler. I worry about Tucker. He lost opportunities and playing time last season. Yeah, nothing listed. Reportedly clocked a 4.3 in high school. This is an article from FanDuel a few days ago, but that was high school. Like things have changed. Yeah, I don't know Tucker's 40 time. He's not somebody that I'm targeting in dynasty rookie drafts. He really I will of course see where he lands, where he ends up. If it's a viable landing spot, then okay, we can revisit that. But just the drop off in production is a little cause for concern because the coaches didn't feel like they could throw him out there on third down. That's a big issue in the NFL. Like 2 years ago, he went for 1,700 scrimmage yards, and had he had he declared for the draft in 2022, people were talking about him as a late first round pick. Some were anyway. Before now, that got the kibosh was that conversation didn't last very long because Tucker ultimately returned to school. But fewer touches from 2022 to 20 or from 2021 to 2022, which led to a big drop off in scrimmage yards, which means he wasn't efficient. He got slightly less work, and he had significantly fewer yardage compared to the amount of touches. He lost 24 touches, drop off of over 400 scrimmage yards. What that is not good. Catches went up, but opportunities went down. Coaches didn't feel like he could hold up in pass protection, so he came off the field on third down. So he lost opportunities to make plays, including the ever important running routes and accumulating targets. That's the first path to being fantasy relevant at the running back position. He lost those opportunities this past season. He's supposed to be fast. Tucker's supposed to be fast. He was again, according to FanDuel, was clocked at a 4.3 in high school. That was 3 or 4 years ago. Um, you don't lose speed going from a high school kid to a college kid. You don't lose speed. So if he can run a sub 4.3, great, spectacular. We don't know for sure, but if he can do that, great. Then he's got explosive play potential. But if he can't get on the field on third down, his value is capped. His chance to be an asset for you for your dynasty redraft, whatever it is, fantasy team is capped if he can't get on the field on third down. And do I think Olave can have a good season with Carr? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think he can have a wide receiver one season, low end wide receiver one season with Carr. Olave is excellent. There was a report today that I think it was it Don? I forget his name, like Cliveman or Klein. Kleiman, yeah, he's the NFL News. He covers NFL news and transactions. Dove Kleiman on Twitter. Was he the one who reported that the Saints are working on a contract extension with Michael Thomas? Like, okay, okay, I'm not falling for that again. Last year, this time, you could have Michael Thomas as a sixth or seventh round pick. I loved taking a shot on that. When he got healthy, it became a third round pick. I dabbled a little bit there, but I was less interested at that point. It looked for 1 week or maybe a couple of weeks. It looked like, oh my god, like this guy's going to be a league winner. 2 touchdown performance against the Falcons, week one, and then there were a lot of quiet weeks, and then it followed with season-ending surgery somewhere around the midway point of the season. Yeah, I'm not doing this song and dance with Michael Thomas again. I'm not concerned about a contract extension. In fact, show that to somebody who has Olave and be like, okay, I'll give you a first round pick for Olave. Maybe not the 101, but I would send any other in one quarterback. I would send the 102, or maybe not the 102 because I could just take Smith and Jigba. But if I've got like the 104 and Smith and Jigba is gone, and the guy who has Olave wants the 104 this year, they have it. Take it. It's yours. I'll take Olave. He is the new number one wide receiver in New Orleans, or well, he was last year, but he's going into this season definitively for the first time, whether Michael Thomas is there or not, as the wide receiver one for New Orleans this year. They get it, and they get a quarterback upgrade. They're going to go from Andy Dalton to Derek Carr. Whether, no matter how you slice it, excuse me, that's a quarterback upgrade. Olave's redraft ADP right now, way too early redraft ADP, at least in best ball leagues on Underdog Fantasy, is 26.3. He's the wide receiver 14 being drafted. Yeah, he could do that. He could do that, or he can do a couple of spots better. Hmm. Yeah, he is top. Yeah, I mean, he has top 12 upside. He has top 12 upside. He has wide receiver, like his floor is a wide receiver too. 72 catches, 1,042 yards, 4 touchdowns as a rookie. Missed a couple of games, one due to a concussion. Um, or was it just that one game? Yeah, I mean, either way, 119 targets, 72 catches, over 1,000 receiving yards as a rookie, 4 touchdowns with average quarterback play. Yes, Chris Olave is going to be a stud this year. He's got top 12 upside, and you can have him in the third round. top of the third round, around the 2-3 turn. But I'm fine taking him there. Like if I have the 101 and I have McCaffrey at the turn, I'll take Olave and then I don't know, a guy like either Chubb or Jacobs because their ADP is just below Olave's. Yeah, I'll take Olave at the 2-3 turn. That's no problem. That's no problem. Yeah, there's looking at best ball and this trend was established. I forget who, but on Twitter last during the season, during the 2022 season, it kind of became established that it's better to have one of the upper echelon quarterbacks in best ball than it is in redraft because in redraft you can just choose the stream, the favorable matchup that you want to go with. A viable quarterback in a great matchup can be just as good as any one of the top quarterbacks for that week. But in best ball, when you can't make those changes, you can't make those choices, you can't make those decisions. Your decisions are at the draft, and then that's it. Drafters now more than ever are taking quarterbacks higher than they've ever been. Even in all best ball formats, at least the ones that I've seen, are all one quarterback formats. So it's totally common to see Josh Allen's ADP is 17.1. Patrick Mahomes' ADP is 17.5. Jalen Hurts' ADP is 18.8. Joe Burrow's ADP is a little farther back down, but still damn high for what the trend usually is for one quarterback leagues as far as drafting the quarterbacks themselves. Burrow's ADP is 31.9, so about 32. That's four quarterbacks going basically around the top 30 picks in best ball. One quarterback best ball. So to me, this could bite me. But what I'm probably going to do, and I'm going to diversify my builds in best ball a lot this year, just and see what sticks. But I always like the idea of zigging when everybody else is zagging, or zagging when everybody else is zigging, however you want to call it. If people are going to follow that trend, this is going to be the first time I kind of test something and try to go against the grain. If people are going to draft a top flight quarterback, and I see the logic to drafting a top quarterback in best ball early with one of your first 3 or 4 picks. I get the logic. You never have to worry. You know your quarterback is going to come through for you most weeks, even in bad matchups. But if people are going to push all the quarterbacks up with that same thought process, then I'll take Jared Goff 114 picks into a draft. I'll take Russell Wilson. I know it was terrible last year. I get it. I know. But now that Sean Payton is in town and the vibes are going to be a little bit better because Russ gets to work with Sean Payton, the guy he wanted to work with all along prior to requesting a trade from Seattle. Now he gets Sean Payton, who knows what he's doing on offense, in a year where he hopefully is motivated and rejuvenated to bounce back from a forgettable season, to say the least, to put it nicely. I'll take Goff 115 picks into a draft. I'll take Russell Wilson 115 picks into a draft. I'll take Aaron Rodgers, assuming we know that he's going to end up on the Jets. He's currently going 125 picks into the draft, so that probably climbs at least 20, 25 spots once we definitively know that he's going to be a Jet. But if he doesn't climb all the way up, like where some of these other guys are, in the top 60 picks or so, I'll take that. So, again, the logic is for best ball, one quarterback, take a quarterback high. You never have to worry about the quarterback spot. You don't have to, because in redraft, you can stream. In best ball, you can't. So if you're stuck with two lower end quarterbacks and 2 bad matchups, you're probably punting that week at the most important position as far as potential ceiling, potential for a 30-point week. But if everybody's going to follow suit on that, then I'm punting. I'll take a quarterback high, I'll take a quarterback high if he falls 10 spots below his ADP. Otherwise, if everyone's pouncing on them in the best ball tournaments and leagues that I do, I am I'm gonna punt them like I'm gonna punt tight ends. I'll take 3 of them late, load up on skill position players that guys miss out on because of concern of what the quarterback situation can be in a best ball when you don't have control over matchups. I'm curious to see how I do going against the grain for that more often than not this year. Again, I'm going to diversify my builds in numbers that I previously hadn't. I usually once I feel comfortable. Last year I got comfortable with zero RB and I hammered it in so many best ball tournaments and honestly a couple of my redraft leagues. And it worked out in some places. It didn't work out as much as I wanted to. So diversifying the builds, trying different things more than ever. I'm not going to have a rhyme or reason as far as consistently what my teams are going to look like. But my first thought process is what could be a trend is unless one of those top quarterbacks who's going in the top 40 picks falls, I'm punting QB like I'm punting tight end if I don't get Travis Kelsey. So ties a little bit back to Aaron Rodgers. I assume he's not going to retire because he doesn't want to share the spotlight with Brady. So while everyone's grabbing, I'm talking about at the Hall of Fame induction ceremony because they're obviously both slam dunks for that in that regard. Allen goes in the top 20, Hurts, Mahomes go in the top 20, 25 picks. Burrow goes 10 picks later. Lamar goes 5, 10 picks later. Trevor Lawrence not long after that. I'll take Aaron Rodgers with the 125th pick before it gets traded to the Jets. Or just decides to return to play in general. I was out on Rodgers last year. This year today, right in fantasy, this year today, right now, based on the cost, I'm back in because I don't think he's retiring. Does he leave Green Bay? Yeah, that feels like it actually might happen. Like this time for real, this offseason for real this time. But I think he plays. I don't think he retires. So now at pick 125 as opposed to last year when he was like pick 75. Yeah, I'm in. I'm in. As far as Calvin Ridley, Iron, yeah. I mean, did any of you guys see the article or the or the letter or whatever it is that he put together for the Players Tribune? I think it posted yesterday. It posted 2 days ago. I think it was either yesterday or Tuesday. Calvin Ridley penned a note for the Players Tribune about what he went through and where his head was at over the course of everything that transpired with Calvin Ridley the past 2 years. I think Calvin Ridley's going to come back and absolutely ball out. I think he's going to add. If you go back, if you haven't read it, go read it. Calvin Ridley for in the Players Tribune. Go read what he put together if you haven't already, and tell me you don't think Ridley bounces back with a monster season this year. Maybe there's a decent amount of rust. I mean, he hasn't played football for a year and a half, like actual live game action for a year and a half. Of course, he's probably, of course, he's worked out and run routes and probably played like in simulated situations here and there, but he hasn't played NFL live game speed in a year and a half. There's probably going to be some rust. But whether or not there is, if at whatever point he finds his groove, which let's just say he does by week 6 or 7, I think he's going to put up big numbers, man. He's catching passes from Trevor Lawrence, who took leaps and bounds forward this year and looks like the guy who was drafted number 1 overall a couple years ago. He gets to catch passes from him. Christian Kirk is another weapon that takes attention away. Travis Etienne is a playmaker out of the backfield that takes attention away. There are pieces on this offense. Zay Jones had a great season last year. I don't think they bring Marvin Jones back because now they have Calvin Ridley. Um, that offense has pieces and has a chance to be. They might be the sleeper right now as far as the NFL. Like they're the sleeping. I don't. I won't call them the sleeping giant. I'm not ready to put their up. I'm not ready to put the Jaguars up there with the likes of the Chiefs, the Ravens when Lamar plays, the Bengals, the Bills. But they're not far off. If Trevor Lawrence takes another step forward, and there's no reason to believe that he doesn't in his third season, now fully comfortable with, you know, a real NFL playbook, a second straight season without any random drama from the head coach, coming off of winning a playoff game, winning a division title, probably, definitely the favorites to win the division again, to repeat. The Colts are rebuilding. The Texans are rebuilding. The Titans, I don't know what the Titans are. They probably should rebuild. The Jags have all the momentum in the AFC South right now. They are going to be. They're probably. I mean, if all goes well on paper, they have 11 or 12 wins written on them, and it's going to be because I mean the defense has pieces, but it's going to be because of that offense. Now, Ridley said, I'm not really spoiling anything when I say this, but in that article, Ridley said he was like, with Trevor Lawrence throwing me the ball, I'm going to have 1,400 yards this year. I don't know if he gets to 1,400 yards, but I do think he's going to be a guy where if you draft again in best ball, if you start playing early best ball, I think you can have Calvin Ridley around the 45th pick. Might climb a little bit, especially now that people are starting to read the article. Of course, hype naturally grows when stuff like this happens. But man, I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be good, and I think he's incredibly easy to root for. There was because people were calling him names. People were calling him an idiot for gambling, and he admitted he screwed up. He messed up. It was a bad look, right? It was a terrible look for Ridley what he did. But go read the article and tell me you still think he's an idiot after that. After reading that article, tell me with a straight face you still feel that way. It's really good. And it's going to naturally boost his ADP up. So if he's going in the third round, maybe you don't take that risk anymore. But if he's getting drafted anywhere between picks 45 and 50, I'd be all over that. I'd be all over that. Yeah. I think he's going to be good. I think dynasty managers who either went and acquired him or stood pat on him are gonna. I think their patience is gonna pay off. I think your patience is gonna pay off if you either acquired Ridley or had him and held, didn't accept offers for him that were maybe below what you wanted to actually put. Maybe you thought about it just because at the time he wasn't playing and was a big time question mark. Still is a question mark, right? We haven't seen him for a year and a half. We actually have to see him. But the vibes are really good with him right now. The vibes are strong. If you held or if you bought low, because I don't think anybody was selling high, if you held or bought low on Calvin Ridley, I think your patience is going to pay off. And again, if you didn't read the article, just Google it. Calvin Ridley Players Tribune. um, in fact, I'll just post it. I'm just gonna. I'll do them. I'll do them a solid. I'll just post it in the chat. If y'all haven't read that, read it when you have some time. It'll make you a fan and it'll make you want to buy back in. So yeah, Iron, you should feel hype. You should feel hype about Ridley and you should feel hype about Olave. The last thing I got, and I appreciate people coming in and hanging out, hoping everybody's having a good evening. Maybe you're enjoying some college basketball. The conference tournaments are going on. Uh, I got one more piece that I wanted to talk about. If there's anything anybody else has as far as questions or talking points, I'm always open. Um, Otherwise, I got one more little segment uh, before we call it, and of course, I'll keep an eye out for any again questions or anything anybody wants to talk about. But appreciate y'all coming in and hanging out. Um, I have to address before we go Anthony Richardson, who is obviously the talk of the town uh, after the combine. And I know some of y'all probably have a lot of interest in him from a dynasty perspective. I put an art, or I put an article. I put a video out about Anthony Richardson following the combine hype, which is still I feel very real, very alive. Probably not going anywhere. I like Anthony Richardson a lot. I think from a fantasy perspective, I think he's going to eventually grow into a quarterback that you're firing up on game day. It might take a couple of years, might take 2 or 3 years, but I think Richardson becomes an everyday, even in one quarterback leagues, an everyday. Whether it'll probably start as a streamer, maybe year one he probably doesn't get picked up because I think he's going to get drafted to a team like Seattle, where they're going to let Geno Smith start week one, and if it's not Seattle, it's another team with an incumbent who they're going to start week one and they're going to bring Richardson along. Probably doesn't play for half the year unless there's an injury. So it's not going to be right away. But in the right situation, in the right scenario, I think he eventually grows into whether he's a good NFL quarterback or not, that remains to be seen. But as far as putting up numbers using his legs and he's got great arm strength, he can chuck it deep. If he's able to hit on those and he's able to make big plays with his legs, which he did his senior not his senior season, his I guess it was his junior season in 2022, he's going to put up QB1 numbers. He's the latest in the line of guys where he has the tools, he just needs to develop. And he needs to go to a situation where he gets brought along the right way, whatever that is, whether it's they bring him along slowly, he's on the bench, he's watching, he's observing, he's honing his craft on the sidelines, right? While he gets some seasoning, some polish, things that Bryce Young and CJ Stroud already have. I don't know that Richardson's ceiling surpasses Young or Stroud, but he has the highest from a fantasy perspective. He has the highest ceiling of the quarterbacks in this class. Will it happen this year? I'll say no. His rookie season, I'll say no. His second year, yeah, it could happen then. It could happen then. If he gets drafted in the top 10 to a team that's not good, who eventually wants to turn things over to whether it's Richardson as a rookie or as a second year player, they're going to eventually want to see what they have in him. If he gets drafted in the top half of the first round, which at this point you expect, he will be fantasy relevant by no later than 2026. I'm sorry, by 2025. 2024 being the first real year that he has probably a shot to do it for an extended period of time. So I'm not taking him over in super flex leagues. I'm not taking him over Young. I'm not taking him over Stroud. And in one quarterback leagues, I'm not going to overbite and take him sooner than the top of the second round. But he's got the tools. He's exciting as hell. We just need him to go to the right situation and wait. I think he's going to be rock solid for fantasy before long. That's gonna do it for me today. I don't see any other questions or talking points in the chat. Just wanted to come hang out for a little while and talk shop with you guys. So appreciate everybody coming in and hanging out. I'll be back next week, same time, same place. Free agency will have kicked off at that point, or it will probably be a couple of hours into free agency. So we'll be able to talk about that. There will be a lot of developments between now and the next week. If there's anything breaking, time permitting, I could try to jump on impromptu stream whether the Rodgers trade goes down, whether Lamar Jackson gets signed either with Baltimore or somewhere else. If I can go live when those things happen, or if those things happen in a not in an untimely manner, I'll do my best. Otherwise, I'll be here 6 p.m. Eastern for some free agency coverage. Iron, I'll try to get a mock. So John is still kind of out of commission, still working his way back from his back surgery. He had all the technicals set up correctly on his end of the connection. So I'll see if I can get it as far as like as the screen sharing software. If we can get that going, I would love to do a mock draft with anybody who wants to pop in. I'll have to see if I can get the setup configured correctly. So TBD there. I'll test that out this week and see if I can get that up and running. I would love to get a mock draft going. I'll try that for next week. Again, thank you guys for coming in and hanging out. I will try to jump on if and when a big shoe drops in the NFL, whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Lamar Jackson. Otherwise, I'll be here 6 p.m. Eastern next Thursday. Everybody have a great weekend. Enjoy it, whether you're watching the USFL or no, it's the XFL or golf or college basketball, whatever it is. Enjoy. Stay safe. Have fun. I'll see you guys next week. Thanks, everybody.